Hello and welcome to Frost Over the World. Later in the programme, Peru's foreign minister on the Chilean spy scandal. The New York trial of the 9/11 plotters. Is it in the right place? Is Israel really outsmarting President Obama? And the new president for Europe and the greatest Olympian of them all, Steve Redgrave, 5 consecutive gold medals. All on the programme today. But first to Afghanistan, where Hamid Karzai was sworn in as president again this week. And joining me now, a man who you might call in British terms something like leader of the opposition, really, the man who came second in that election, Dr. Abdullah Abdullah. Did you attend the ceremony of the inauguration this week?
No, I didn't. I didn't go there. In fact, I watched it on TV. I watched it very carefully, every word in every act, I didn't attend the program.
And do you accept now Hamid Karzai is legitimately president of the country?
No, I think his legitimacy will depend on how he will get the people together, and he is able to deliver on what he has promised. But if you're asking about the legal base of his appointment, he has been appointed on the basis of an illegal decision. That will remain there. That will be constant. But now he has the international recognition. He is declared as the president of Afghanistan, in that chapter of disputing the results of the elections is behind us.
Right. One other thing on that is that the runoff, the second election you were much in favour of, and then you withdrew. Why did you withdraw from that? People thought you would do extremely well again, and so on. What was it that made you withdraw from that runoff?
What happened in the first round, the elections, massive fraud, state engineer fraud, committed by the government in collaboration with the IEC, Independent Election Commission. That was very obvious, and that we all witnessed, the people of Afghanistan and the world. I had raised some conditions for improvement in the process in order to have a better round of elections, second round. There were some conditions on government and some on the IEC itself. But later on, in a meeting which I had with Mr. Karzai, I reduced those conditions to minimum 1, just replacement of the chair of the IEC, which administered fraudulent elections. So those conditions were not met. And I thought, from the other side, I had every evidence that the government will be more vigorous in committing fraud, and IEC was well prepared to collaborate in that. So that single condition was not met in order to go back to the people to say that everything will not be all right, but Mr. Karzai has shown some commitment to the improvement of the process, which is just replacement of the chair of the IEC and appointment of one of the commissioners, which were also appointed by him of his own choice. So when this was not met, I thought that it will be a painful process once again to the people of Afghanistan. Many lives were lost during the first round elections, and the outcome will be again massive fraud committed. So that was the basis of my decision not to participate. I hope you are hearing me well, because helicopters are flying over.
Yes, helicopters are flying over. It gives us a sense of the atmosphere there and so on. Do you think there's any way in which in the next 5 years or whatever you could take some post in the administration, in the government of Afghanistan? Or does the fact that President Karzai is president rule that out?
I think my agenda, I will pursue my agenda for change, that will be my program. In my opinion, just joining the government for myself will not be sufficient in order to create the conditions for change, much needed change. And those conditions, without those conditions, unfortunately, I'm very pessimistic. The deterioration of the situation might continue. So I will not be able to help without pursuit of my program. So I'll be pursuing it from a position of an opposition or any other form. So I do not seek at this stage a post in the government.
Right, you do not seek it at this stage. What about the parliamentary elections next year, Mr. Abdullah? Will you take part in those, or do you think those will be rigged as well, so you won't take part in them? Because obviously your followers could do very well in that election.
Hopefully we will have reform of the Independent Election Commission, IEC, before the parliamentary elections. That's a must in order to avoid another fraudulent elections. So the last hope is through the parliamentary elections to bring changes through the legislative branch. So I will have an influence. I will be part of the process as a whole. Whether I myself will run as a parliamentarian, that's a different issue, but certainly the movement for change which has started, I'll put it together, and it will introduce several parliamentarians, several candidates in the parliamentary elections. There is no doubt about that.
Dr. Abdullah, thank you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
And now back in the studio to the other big story of the last 24 hours. Who is the new face, or the two new faces, of Europe? Last night, the 27 leaders of the European Union chose the new president of the European Council and its new High Representative for Foreign Affairs, both posts created by the Lisbon Treaty. The names, well, you might not have heard a great deal about them so far, but they are the Prime Minister of Belgium, Herman Van Rompuy, and Baroness Ashton, Cathy Ashton, the current EU Commissioner from the UK for Trade. But what exactly do we know about them? Joining me now is Hugo Rifkind from The Times. Well, what do we know? Or to put it another way, how surprised were you by these nominations?
By Van Rompuy, not at all at this stage. I think no one had heard of him a month ago, not even in Belgium. But he's been emerging as the favourite for the last.
He was a household name in his household.
In his household,
maybe not.
One has to hope he was a household name in his household. No, I remember compiling a list of the potential runners and riders for this job, maybe a month and a half ago, and there were plenty of people who thought I'd made up this man called Herman Van Rompuy because they'd never heard of him. But by last week, he was looking like a sort of the most likely anti-Blair contender. Cathy Ashton appears to have come out of nowhere. I don't think anybody saw that coming, and it's quite impressive that they've managed to not only find a Belgian that no one in Britain's ever heard of, but a Brit that no one in Britain's ever heard of as well.
Yes, and the other thing was France and Germany don't seem to really got their candidates in position either. France and Germany were going to demonstrably lead and dominate these proceedings,
yes.
But they haven't actually.
They don't seem to have done so. No, I think the existence of Blair as a candidate changed everything because he was popular outside the big sort of France and Germany bloc. But I think they were left when they realised Blair wasn't going to get it. I think they were left with the problem of how to appease the Brits because there was talk of Miliband taking the foreign role, but he didn't want it. There was even talk of Mandelson taking the foreign role, but he didn't want it. And I guess they kept going down the list until they found a suitable candidate.
Yes, and so they went about. Tell me, if there is a clash between the European Parliament or a commissioner with the president, our new president, who wins?
We shall have to wait and see. It ought to be the Parliament or the Commissioner, because the Parliament is elected and the Commissioners are at least directly appointed. The President is not supposed to have any power beyond being a chairman. Part of the great fear of the job going to Tony Blair was that it would turn into a much more sort of executive role in the US mould. But the President should not be able to throw his weight around.
What about the Foreign Secretary, I mean, High Representative, etc.? If she has a dispute, Is the same thing true there? That's more of an active role. That's not just a chairing role, is it?
It is an active role, but the same should be true because Europe only just has foreign policy. You know, we're talking about the foreign policy of the member states. So she won't be able to make undertakings. She won't be able to. She will be, you know, only representing views rather than forming them. Again, such is the expectation. Such is the role.
Well, it's great to have you with us interpreting these matters, Hugo. In general, will anything change in terms of which way the EU goes as a result of these decisions?
I haven't a clue. I think if it had been Blair, if it had been another big name, it could have done, because there could have been a huge amount of hostility from those nations that are less keen on their role in Europe, and that could have gone either way. It could have gone in a sort of very anti-EU way, or it could have moved us closer towards having an elected leader. But I think they've played it safe. They've gone for the candidates that aren't going to rock the boat, and that's why none of us have ever heard of them.
Right, right. Thank you very much indeed. Talking of rocking the boat, Steve Redgrave is coming along a bit later, but in a minute, the spying scandal which is tearing Peru and Chile apart. Yes, after this short break.